What if I told you that the very nuts you've trusted your entire life, those same handfuls you've believed were nourishing your body, may now be quietly working against the health of your mind? And what if I also told you that a single mindful change in what you eat could help preserve your memory for years to come? This is not a message I share lightly, but after what happened to my own father, silence was no longer an option. I speak today not to alarm, but to awaken. I invite you to listen through to the end, not as a patient receiving advice, but as a fellow traveler on the path of aging, seeking clarity and peace of mind in a world full of noise. Because what I discovered, and what thousands of elders are now experiencing, is something the food industry would rather you never knew, that clarity of thought is not lost to time, but often surrendered unknowingly to daily choices. Let us begin with a quiet truth, often overlooked. As we grow older, our bodies evolve, not just in what we can do, but in what we can absorb, digest, and transform. Especially when it comes to something as seemingly innocent as nuts. What nourished us in our 40s and 50s can begin to challenge us in our 60s, 70s, and beyond. This shift isn't about allergies, nor is it about sudden intolerance. It is deeper, a biochemical transformation that changes how our aging bodies process certain fats and natural compounds. In truth, some nuts once praised for their health benefits can become quiet saboteurs, especially for the aging brain. Yet this knowledge seldom finds its way into headlines or waiting rooms. Why? Because there is no profit in encouraging the elder to pause and discern, only in keeping shelves full and habits unchanged. But I stand before you with a different intention. Not all nuts are equal, and for seniors the difference is more than nutritional, it is neurological. The right choices can support clarity, memory, and vitality. The wrong ones can gently hasten decline. This insight did not come from a textbook. It came from watching my father, the man of great intellect and poetic memory, begin to lose the very spark that once lit up every room he entered. It began subtly, misplacing keys, forgetting names. We smiled gently, calling them senior moments. He was 73 after all. But then came the morning that changed everything. He phoned me, confused, not about something new or complex, but about how to make his morning coffee. A ritual he'd performed for half a century. That was the moment I felt the floor of familiarity shift beneath us. Medical voices offered their answers, some medication, little hope, and phrases like normal decline. But something inside me whispered, no, there must be more. So I searched, not just through scientific journals, but through wisdom, both modern and ancient. I spoke with neurologists, longevity experts, and those who dared ask deeper questions. And I discovered something quietly powerful, that certain nuts, long part of his heart-healthy diet, were in fact inflaming his brain, altering his chemistry, dulling his spark. Let me begin with one such nut, the cashew. Cashews, while smooth and delicious, carry a high carbohydrate load, something the aging body is less equipped to manage. As insulin sensitivity declines with age, these carbs cause blood sugar to spike, then crash, leading to fog, fatigue, and forgetfulness. Cashews also contain oxalates, compounds that build quietly in the body, straining organs and creating a hidden inflammation, not just in the gut, but in the brain itself. And so, a food once praised becomes, unknowingly, a source of suffering. There is a delicate balance within the aging body, a harmony between what it receives and what it can transform. When this balance is disturbed, even the most wholesome foods may begin to carry hidden consequences. Let us return to the story of the cashew. Its gentle curve, its smooth texture, its natural sweetness all suggest comfort, nourishment, trust. But for the aging body, especially beyond the age of 65, cashews can quietly become a source of imbalance. Their high carbohydrate content leads to sugar fluctuations that the body, once adaptable, now struggles to manage. And these fluctuations do not end in the bloodstream. They echo in the brain, manifesting as fog, forgetfulness, and disconnection from clarity. Cashews also contain oxalates, compounds that can overwhelm the detoxification systems of elders whose internal filters no longer function as efficiently. These oxalates don't remain localized. They move subtly but steadily, creating systemic inflammation. And eventually, they may touch even the tissues of the brain. This is the kind of inflammation we often dismiss as aging. But there is nothing ordinary about losing the memory of a grandchild's voice or forgetting the sound of your own laughter. This is not just aging. It is a call to become more mindful of what we welcome into our bodies. Let us now look at another unexpected companion on this path, the peanut. Though we call it a nut, it is, in truth, a legume. And while small and familiar, the peanut brings with it a deeper risk for the aging brain. First, it is one of the most common sources of aflatoxins, microscopic toxins produced by molds that grow on improperly stored peanuts. For younger bodies, these toxins may be processed and cleared, but with age, our toxin elimination pathways slow, allowing these substances to accumulate quietly within. Research has begun to draw the connection between long-term aflatoxin exposure and cognitive decline, especially in seniors with weakened immune systems. This is no small finding. Peanuts also contain an imbalanced ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. The aging brain is already navigating inflammation as a natural part of its journey, and the daily addition of pro-inflammatory fats may tip the scale even further toward mental fatigue and emotional cloudiness. I recall watching my father sit at the kitchen table, a bowl of peanuts beside him, struggling to recall his own granddaughter's name. At first, we blamed time, but the truth was, sitting in his hand, one salted kernel at a time, the third nut we must revisit with care is the Brazil nut. On the surface, Brazil nuts appear to be a miracle, rich in selenium, a mineral essential for protecting the brain through antioxidant action. And indeed, selenium plays a powerful role in maintaining clarity and resilience. But here is where wisdom must guide quantity. Just 2 Brazil nuts exceed the entire daily recommended dose of selenium. For those who snack on a handful each morning, thinking it healthful, the result can be selenium toxicity. The symptoms often mimic early dementia, irritability, nausea, mood swings, even nerve pain and confusion. I have seen elders unknowingly poison themselves slowly, their intentions noble, their choices uninformed. And because the signs of excess selenium resemble the very decline we fear, no one thinks to trace the source back to this humble nut. This is the danger of what seems healthy without the deeper context of aging. Now let us turn to a nut that invites more controversy, the almond, or more specifically, the conventionally processed almond. Almonds in their pure form carry benefits, but the almonds most seniors find in supermarkets are often treated with chemical fumigants and exposed to industrial processes designed for preservation, not for health. These treatments leave residues that the aging detoxification system struggles to clear. Over time, these residues contribute to what is now known among neurologists as toxic load syndrome, a state where the brain, overburdened by environmental toxins, begins to falter. In elders, the blood-brain barrier becomes more porous, and these toxins, once held at bay, now reach delicate neural tissue, bringing inflammation, fatigue, and loss. Furthermore, conventionally grown almonds tend to contain higher amounts of inflammatory omega-6 fats, the result of modern farming and feed practices, another quiet contributor to the inflammation that clouds the mind. When we made a simple switch, replacing my father's processed almonds with truly raw organic ones, we saw changes his doctors had deemed impossible. Within weeks, his gaze sharpened, his attention returned. There was life behind his eyes again. This was not magic, it was alignment, and from that alignment, the transformation began. He removed these 4 nuts from his diet: cashews, peanuts, Brazil nuts in excess, and conventional almonds. It was not punishment, it was an act of reverence toward his brain, his memories, and his still unfolding life. Soon we introduced 4 others, allies, not saboteurs, and the fog began to lift. The doctors could not explain the changes in his cognitive tests. But we could. We had not fought age. We had simply chosen to walk with it more wisely. What we discovered in our journey, and what leading neurologists and longevity researchers are only beginning to understand, is this: that specific foods hold specific powers over the aging brain. And more importantly, that making even small intentional changes in what we consume can shift the very trajectory of cognitive aging. This is not a promise of miracles. It is not about reversing time. Rather, it is about moving in harmony with your body's natural evolution and supplying it with exactly what it needs, while gently removing what now burdens it. This wisdom, though validated by modern research, is not new. It echoes ancient voices. In the traditions of classical Chinese medicine, there was a concept called Shen, the spirit of consciousness, the clarity of mind. Certain nuts were prescribed specifically to preserve this Shen in the elderly, chosen not for taste or convenience, but for their capacity to nourish brain and spirit alike. What's remarkable is that the very nuts once recommended by these sages correspond with the ones modern science now confirms to be rich in anti-inflammatory compounds and neuroprotective nutrients. Similarly, the Ayurvedic tradition of India classified nuts by their influence on the aging body. Elders were advised to consume particular varieties to balance the mind, maintain memory, and sustain vitality. Again, these ancient prescriptions mirror what nutritional science is only now beginning to confirm through biochemical studies and neural imaging. How could these two worlds, one rooted in tradition, the other in technology, converge so precisely? The answer, I believe, is simple. Truth leaves footprints across time. From this union of tradition and science came the foundation of the 4 nuts that now form my father's cognitive recovery ritual. Let me introduce you to the first. 1. The walnut, the architect of new thought. There is a reason the walnut resembles the shape of the human brain. Nature rarely creates such poetry by accident. Walnuts are the richest plant-based source of alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, a type of omega-3 fatty acid essential for brain repair and regeneration. What makes ALA extraordinary is its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, nourishing brain cells and stimulating neurogenesis, the formation of new neural connections, even in aging brains. A well-known study at UCLA found that seniors who consumed walnuts regularly performed better on cognitive tests, even when other lifestyle factors were accounted for. Walnuts are also potent antioxidants, fighting the oxidative stress that accelerates cognitive decline. For my father, we began simply 7 walnuts every morning. Within weeks, we noticed an improvement in his memory, his verbal clarity, and even the light in his eyes. It was not coincidence, it was correction. 2. The pecan, guardian of neural integrity. Often overshadowed by more popular nuts, the pecan is a silent protector of the aging brain. Rich in proanthocyanidins, a unique class of antioxidants, pecans have a natural affinity for neural tissue. These compounds form a protective shield around delicate brain structures, slowing the damage caused by free radicals. More importantly for seniors, pecans are high in vitamin E, a nutrient that becomes increasingly vital after age 65. Low vitamin E levels have been strongly associated with accelerated cognitive decline, yet over 90% of seniors in the US are deficient. Pecans also support healthy blood flow through their monounsaturated fats, ensuring that oxygen and nutrients are delivered efficiently to brain tissue. When my father began adding pecans to his daily mix, his processing speed improved, something even his neurologist remarked on with disbelief. 3. The pistachio, the keeper of circulation. With their vibrant green hue, pistachios are more than a snack. They are vascular medicine for the brain. These nuts contain a rare combination of B vitamins, antioxidants, and plant sterols that promote blood vessel health. which is crucial as we age. The brain, like a flame, depends on oxygen, and oxygen arrives through blood. But with age, the tiny vessels feeding the brain begin to stiffen and narrow. Pistachios help preserve vessel elasticity, reducing the risk of silent mini-strokes that chip away at cognition without warning. They are also rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, nutrients long associated with eye health, but now shown to support brain function as well. The brain-eye axis is real, and what nourishes one often benefits the other. In my father's case, pistachios helped restore not only energy, but his ability to sustain focus for longer periods. 4. The pine nut, the hidden treasure. The final member of this sacred quartet is the pine nut, a humble food underappreciated in modern nutrition, yet revered in ancient healing systems. Pine nuts are a rare source of pinolenic acid, a fatty acid with powerful anti-inflammatory properties. For seniors whose brains naturally accumulate inflammation over time, this is a quiet gift of balance. Even more profoundly, pine nuts deliver manganese, a mineral that supports mitochondrial health, the energy centers of our brain cells. When mitochondria slow down, our minds tire easily, focus wavers, and mood darkens. But with proper nourishment, these engines reawaken. When my father began including just 1 tablespoon of pine nuts daily, we saw a gentle but steady shift in his mental endurance. He could read longer, converse more clearly, and remain mentally present in moments that once passed him by. Among the most unassuming of nature's gifts are the pine nuts, small, elongated seeds that carry the memory of millennia. In the healing traditions of East and West alike, they were regarded not simply as food, but as medicine, a source of clarity, endurance, and neural strength. Modern research now validates what our ancestors instinctively knew, that these little seeds contain pinolenic acid, a rare fatty acid known to reduce inflammation across multiple biological pathways. For the aging brain, where low-grade inflammation accumulates like mist across a once clear valley, this effect can be quietly transformative. Pine nuts also contain generous amounts of manganese, a mineral essential for the mitochondria, the tiny energy engines within each brain cell. As we age, these engines begin to slow, leading to fatigue, dullness, and reduced mental resilience. But with the right nourishment, this decline can be softened, even reversed. In my father's journey, we saw it firsthand. A single tablespoon of pine nuts each morning brought with it noticeable improvements in his ability to focus, remain mentally present, and recover from fatigue. No stimulants, no pharmaceuticals, just food, ancient and wise. But knowledge, no matter how profound, must become practice. So allow me to share with you the morning ritual that became the cornerstone of my father's healing. It is not complicated, and that is precisely why it works. Each morning, before the rush of thought and obligation, he prepares a simple mixture. 1 tablespoon each of freshly ground walnuts, pecans, pistachios, and pine nuts, what we have come to call his cognitive quartet. He stirs this blend into plain organic yogurt, adding a teaspoon of raw local honey for sweetness and natural antimicrobial benefit. Lastly, a light dusting of Ceylon cinnamon, not only for flavor, but for its proven anti-inflammatory effects on the brain. This small bowl contains more than nutrients. It is a declaration of intention, a sacred pause, a daily act of remembrance that the mind, even when clouded by time, still longs to be nourished. The yogurt provides probiotics, beneficial bacteria that support the gut, which in turn speaks constantly to the brain. This gut-brain axis is now understood to be one of the most important relationships in all of human biology. A healthy gut, supported by this ritual, leads to clearer thought, steadier mood, and better memory retention. The entire preparation takes less than 3 minutes, but its effects last the whole day. sustained energy without spikes or crashes, improved recall of words, names, moments, mood stability in situations that once caused confusion, and most of all, the slow but unmistakable return of selfhood, the spark we had feared lost forever. Let us now pause and reflect on the science that underpins this transformation. For understanding the why gives strength to the how. Each of these 4 nuts brings something essential to the aging mind. They offer antioxidants that calm the storm of free radicals, slowing the cellular damage that ages the brain. They supply essential fatty acids, the very building blocks of neurons and myelin sheaths, the protective layers around nerve fibers that degrade with age. They contain natural modulators of inflammation, calming the very processes that contribute most to cognitive decline. They improve cerebrovascular function, ensuring that oxygen and nutrients flow freely through brain tissue. And perhaps most importantly, they support neuroplasticity, the brain's miraculous ability to adapt, rewire, and learn, even in its 7th, 8th, or 9th decade of life. This is not a solution for just one problem. It is a holistic alignment addressing the entire interconnected system of aging cognition. It is simple, it is sustainable, and for many, it is the beginning of a second clarity. What I offer you here goes far beyond numbers, charts, or even scientific validation, though those too have their place. What convinced me more than any study was what I witnessed with my own eyes, my father's return to himself. 6 months after we began these changes, modest at first but consistent, he called me early one morning, his voice trembling not with confusion but with awe. He'd had a dream, he said, one so vivid that he remembered the scent of the river near his childhood home, the exact pattern on the old rug in his grandmother's kitchen. These were not vague flashes. They were memories once thought lost, now returned like long-missing companions. I thought those moments were gone forever, he whispered, but they were just waiting for me to find them again. 3 months after that morning, he surprised us all again, reciting each grandchild's birthday without assistance. It had been more than a year since he could recall even one of them without help. When he went back for a cognitive assessment, the physician reviewing the results looked up, visibly stunned. The improvements were undeniable, not only in memory scores, but in responsiveness, verbal fluency, and emotional stability. What changed? The doctor asked. When we explained the protocol, simple nutritional shifts, daily rituals, and mindful nourishment, he was skeptical, but the data was there. Whatever you're doing, he finally said, keep doing it. 2 years have now passed. My father, once unsure how to make coffee, now leads a weekly brain health circle at his local community center. He speaks not only from experience, but from study. He reads medical journals. He mentors others. The very man whose thoughts were slipping away now offers others a path back to presence. But his story also reveals something far more troubling, a quiet failure in the way society views aging. We have come to accept confusion, forgetfulness, and mental withdrawal as the price of growing old. We label it normal and move on as though it were written in the laws of nature. But this view, while convenient, does not serve our elders. In truth, it serves only those who profit from passivity, from dependency, from despair. Emerging research tells a different story. From neuroplasticity to nutritional neuroscience, we now know that many aspects of cognitive decline are preventable, and some, even after years of progression, are partially reversible through the right interventions. Of course, genetics and history matter, but what's also true and not spoken loudly enough is that the brain's capacity for healing and adaptation persists far longer than we believed. My father's transformation is not an outlier. It is evidence that change is possible when the right nourishment is provided with intention. This is not about denying the reality of Alzheimer's or dementia. It is about acknowledging a wide spectrum of aging-related cognitive challenges and understanding that we have more influence than we've been led to believe. If we accept decline as destiny, we close the door on the possibility of healing. If we invite possibility, even cautiously, we allow room for something better. Now, let me offer a few practical reflections because knowledge without application fades. First, prioritize quality. Organic nuts, especially walnuts and pecans, are worth seeking out. These crops are often heavily treated, and the brain, especially the aging brain, is sensitive to chemical residues. Second, protect freshness. The beneficial oils in nuts are fragile. They oxidize easily when exposed to light or heat. Buy in small amounts, store in the refrigerator, and if needed, freeze portions for later use. Third, activate them through soaking. A simple overnight soak in filtered water helps remove natural inhibitors that make digestion harder, especially important for seniors with slower digestive fire. Fourth, grind nuts fresh each morning. This preserves nutrients and improves absorption. A small coffee grinder used only for this purpose is more than enough. Fifth, and perhaps most important, be consistent. The body, like the soil, responds to what is sown each day. Small daily rituals nourish far more deeply than occasional bursts of effort. Before we continue, let me clarify some common misunderstandings that may prevent this knowledge from taking root. The first, the belief that all nuts are equal in their effects on the brain. They are not. Each nut carries its own chemistry, its own strengths and weaknesses, just as each elder carries their own body, history, and story. To walk this path wisely, we must learn to discern, not just consume. As we walk the path of healing, it is not only our bodies that must be nourished, but also our understanding. For many of the barriers preventing transformation are not physical, but conceptual. Beliefs held quietly for years, never questioned, yet capable of limiting what we allow ourselves to receive. Let me begin by gently addressing some common misconceptions so that the light of clarity may fall where confusion once lingered. First, the idea that all nuts are created equal. We have already spoken of this. Just as each tree bears a different fruit, each nut holds a different biochemical signature. The aging brain does not respond equally to all. It requires discernment, not dogma. Second, the belief that raw nuts are always better than roasted. While it is true that raw nuts preserve certain heat-sensitive nutrients, gentle roasting can enhance the availability of others. The key is in the method. Low temperature, mindful roasting preserves integrity. High-temperature commercial processes, on the other hand, can damage fats and create toxins. It is not a question of raw or roasted, but how and why the nut was prepared. Third, the notion that organic labels matter only for fruits and vegetables, not for nuts. In truth, nuts, rich in oils, are highly absorbent of pesticides. These residues accumulate in fat and may travel easily through a compromised blood-brain barrier. For elders especially, choosing organic, particularly for walnuts and pecans, is an act of protection, not indulgence. Fourth, the assumption that if one has a nut allergy, then the entire path is closed. This is not necessarily true. Many nut allergies are specific to one botanical family. For example, a person sensitive to cashews may tolerate walnuts or pecans safely. The journey simply requires guidance and attentiveness, not abandonment. And fifth, the deeply ingrained belief that nutritional interventions are somehow in conflict with conventional medicine. This is a false dichotomy. In truth, nutrition supports medicine. It does not replace your doctor. It empowers the treatment. Seniors with cognitive concerns should absolutely consult their physicians while integrating these protocols. Healing, after all, is not a solo pursuit. It is a collaborative unfolding. Deeper roots, why these foods matter now more than ever. What makes these particular nuts, walnuts, pecans, pistachios, pine nuts so powerful is that they meet the aging brain exactly where it stands. As we cross into our later decades, the brain undergoes several fundamental shifts. The blood-brain barrier becomes more porous, allowing toxins easier access to delicate tissue. Mitochondria, the energy engines within brain cells, lose efficiency. The production of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter essential for memory and learning, declines. Neuroinflammation increases subtly but relentlessly. And oxidative stress rises as free radical production outpaces the body's ability to neutralize them. Each nut in the cognitive quartet addresses these challenges directly. Walnuts provide ALA to support membrane integrity. Pecans offer unique antioxidants that target free radicals most damaging to neurons. Pistachios strengthen vascular function, improving blood flow to the brain. Pine nuts deliver anti-inflammatory compounds and mitochondrial support. This is not about trends or superfoods. It is about precision nourishment designed for the very real changes your brain is experiencing and responding to right now. Across cultures, across time. It is no coincidence that cultures with lower rates of cognitive decline often consume these same nuts as part of their traditional cuisine. In Mediterranean villages, walnuts are a staple. Elders often remain sharp and connected deep into old age. In remote Chinese provinces, where pine nuts have been valued as longevity food for centuries, we see similar preservation of memory and function. Among indigenous North American communities, where pecans were a central part of the ancestral diet, oral histories of elders show remarkable mental clarity well into their 80s and beyond. Modern research may call it correlation, but lived experience across centuries and civilizations suggests a universal pattern of protection. We are only now beginning to understand, in the language of science, what these traditions have known through experience and intuition. Everyday rituals, a practical integration. Now that the path is clearer, how can these foods become a seamless part of daily life? If you do not enjoy yogurt, you can blend the ground nut mixture into a morning smoothie with berries and a splash of oat or almond milk, or stir it into a warm bowl of oatmeal topped with cinnamon and a few blueberries. At lunch, a tablespoon can be sprinkled over salads, adding both texture and cognitive benefit. Some elders enjoy forming energy bites, mixing the ground nuts with honey, cinnamon, and perhaps dried cherries. These become easy, portion-controlled snacks for the day. The key is not complication, it is consistency. Let the act of nourishment become as natural as breath. Your brain, in its quiet wisdom, will respond accordingly. Building a brain-healthy life more than just what you eat. Even the most nutritious food loses its value if it ends up untouched because it doesn't taste good or is too much trouble to prepare. That's why simplicity and enjoyment matter just as much as nutrients. Your brain can only benefit from what your body welcomes regularly. A holistic view, true brain health goes beyond the plate. While today's focus has been on nuts, it would be incomplete not to place these insights within a larger lifestyle framework. The benefits of these brain-friendly nuts become even more powerful when paired with a truly neuroprotective lifestyle, one that cares for the whole person, not just one part. Regular physical movement helps increase blood flow to the brain. Quality sleep gives your brain time to repair, restore, and store memories. Stress reduction techniques lower the impact of cortisol, a hormone that damages brain structures over time. Lifelong learning, trying new skills, solving unfamiliar problems keeps mental circuits sharp. And social connection, often overlooked, supports emotional well-being and activates many parts of the brain during conversation and connection. In my father's case, the remarkable turnaround didn't happen just from eating a handful of walnuts or pistachios. It happened because these foods were introduced as part of a complete shift in daily living. The nuts gave his brain the raw materials, but it was the lifestyle that allowed his brain to use those nutrients effectively. Progress takes time. Let patience be your companion. If you're considering putting these ideas into practice, I encourage you to take a patient, observant approach. Cognitive change rarely happens overnight. Just as decline tends to be gradual, improvement usually unfolds over weeks or even months. One helpful step is to keep a simple personal journal. Track how you feel and function from day to day. Note things like your ability to recall names and words, how easily you find your way around, how long you can focus on one thing, your mental energy throughout the day, mood stability, and your sleep quality, which often improves as your brain health improves. Some people notice changes within weeks. For others, especially those with long-standing cognitive issues, it may take 3 to 6 months to see clear results. Many factors affect how quickly improvements show up: your current nutrient levels, any underlying health conditions, medications you're taking, gut health, and how well you absorb nutrients, and how long the cognitive challenges have been present. In all cases, patience and consistency are your greatest allies. Of the empowering truth, you have more control than you've been told. As we come to the close, I want to share what might be the most meaningful lesson our family learned through my father's journey. Agency exists even where we've been told it doesn't. There's a widespread belief that brain aging is inevitable, unstoppable, and irreversible. That idea is repeated so often, it becomes a quiet form of surrender, one that causes millions of people to give up without even realizing it. But that belief is not grounded in science. It persists because our systems are unprepared to support brain optimization for older adults. The truth is far more hopeful. While we can't control every aspect of aging, we do have significant influence over how our minds age. Something as simple as choosing which nuts to eat can set off chemical changes that support clearer thinking, better memory, and sharper focus. My father's story wasn't a miracle. It was a result of saying no to the myth of helpless decline and choosing instead to take small, consistent, meaningful steps based on modern science and timeless wisdom. And that is a choice available to every one of us. Before we part ways, I'd like to leave you with a final thought, one that quietly yet profoundly changed how I view aging and how I care for the mind that carries me through each day. The human brain, your brain, remains astonishingly responsive no matter how many years have passed. Age does not erase its ability to learn, adapt, heal, and grow. Even now, my father's mind continues to form new pathways, respond to changes, and reflect the choices he makes, both nourishing and harmful. And the same truth applies to you and to every senior you love. This quality of neuroplasticity, the brain's built-in ability to change, is not reserved for the young. It does not vanish with age. It simply asks more of us. More care, more consistency, more intention. That's why understanding which foods support your brain and which ones quietly erode it is so essential. The 4 nuts we spoke of earlier, cashews, peanuts, too many Brazil nuts, and conventional almonds can introduce inflammation, toxins, and oxidative stress that slowly chip away at cognitive strength. But the other 4, walnuts, pecans, pistachios, and pine nuts, offer natural compounds that reduce inflammation, protect against cellular damage, and keep blood flowing smoothly to the brain. They're not just snacks, they're messengers. They tell your body, we are choosing healing, and that kind of choice, made again and again, begins to reshape the future. Each morning, as my father gently prepares his handful of nuts, I see more than a simple breakfast routine. I see a man choosing the kind of brain he wants to live with, not only today, but tomorrow, next year, and for as long as he walks this earth. You have that same power right now in your hands. So I ask you, what will you choose? Before this message fades, let it settle in. Cognitive decline is not a life sentence. It is a path, a direction shaped by thousands of small decisions, many of which live right in your kitchen. Information alone doesn't heal, implementation does. So please don't just finish this video and carry on as before. Let today be the day something shifts. Take just one small action. remove the nuts that harm, add the ones that help. Maybe it's placing a bag of walnuts on the kitchen counter. Maybe it's sharing this insight with someone you care about. That's how real change begins, quietly, patiently, one nut, one meal, one moment of awareness at a time. Your brain is listening always, and it responds faithfully to what you give it. So choose to feed it with intention, with wisdom, with love, because the difference between confusion and clarity, decline and resilience often begins with one mindful choice. And now you have that knowledge. Let your next step be a healing one.